Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gland Bodybuilding. Mountain. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about something that really hamstrings a lot of people from getting results over the long run. And one of those things is that they find a certain parameter in their training that works. And then what they end up doing is sticking to that as like one of the commandments, right? They're like, okay, this is an unnegotiable element of training. Now, you are going to find that there are some parameters that you keep on going back to over the years of training. Like there's certain things that are tried, tested, and true, as they say. And every time you integrate the same parameter into your training, you're gonna find that it continues to work as long as it's integrated properly. So one of the things that I find is that if I put up a video about progressive overload or heavy training, or I put up a video about light training, like training super light or high repetitions, I have a certain group of people that just love that, and they're like, that is the secret. You know, there are certain people that say, you know, that's something to integrate in their training, and then I get other people that are saying, this is the only way to train. You have to lift light if you're a natural bodybuilder because the heavy's too hard on you, or you have to lift heavy because you know, that's the only way you can get the body to adapt. And what I'm saying as a general rule over the last decade of being on YouTube is that both are needed. It's more about what ratio of each that you need in your training and when is it the right time to use each parameter. Now, one thing I will say is that if you notice that you're getting a lot of joint pain or a lot of recovery issues, first things first, take a few days extra rest a week, or at least a day anyway, and see what happens. Second of all, lightening up the load as far as going to a little bit of a higher rep range can help you recover better from your training for the most part, because using heavier weights puts a lot more load on the denser tissues, like the ligaments, the tendons, the labrums, all the cartilage, and that stuff takes longer to heal. So there's a good chance that your body might need some healing in those denser tissues, which means you need to either take a total break or lift lighter for a period of time to allow some rejuvenation of those denser tissues to take place. So that's something I talked about in the last video, but it's really something I think is missed. And what a lot of people will do is they'll throw the baby out with the bathwater. They'll say, oh, I'm getting some sort of joint issue, so that means heavy weights are just a waste of time, never use them. I'm saying it might be the amount of heavy weight that you're using. It's kind of like using spices in your food, right? A little bit of spice is good. Too much, you burn your butthole. You know what I mean? So it just depends on how much you're using for you. Now, if you need to take time off using heavier weights, you might get some tremendous benefit from doing these higher repetition sets, such as greater pumps, greater blood flow. The joints get a little bit of a break. Maybe they start to heal. You start getting more comfort in the joints, like less aches and pains. And as you do this for a period of time, your body may go through a recuperation process, which is also needed in the bodybuilding journey. And you can put on muscle mass during that time because you might be working those slow twitch fibers to get a greater amount of muscle mass in those fibers, right? But that doesn't mean to never go back to heavy ever again, if you can. I mean, if you find that you can do heavy weights once in a while, I find that I get a specific type of stimulation from heavy weights that is absolutely needed in order for me to put on more muscle mass. Now, of course, I don't feel I need to train heavy all the time, but once in a while, I need to at least challenge in that fast twitch fiber range a little bit. So today, for instance, I did bench presses with 275, touching the chest, wide grip, right? And I was getting around sets of, 6 to 9 reps. So with 275, I'm doing a flared technique and I'm touching the chest, which is unusual for me. So I know you guys are gonna be like, hey, what the hell are you doing, right? You're doing full range of motion. What's going on? Are you crazy? But I find actually, funny enough, full range of motion is sometimes easier because when you touch the chest, the bar hitting your chest actually slows down the momentum quite a bit and the muscle doesn't have to. And there's some people out there that think that's actually safer because of that when you're doing chest training, especially when you're doing full range. But regardless of which side of the fence you're on in that, it is a different technique. And I noticed that I can lift a little bit heavier if I'm really tucking those elbows and using more a powerlifting technique and the delts. But that said, I was using a heavier weight today with a moderately flared elbow technique, not really flared like I do with super lightweights, but I was noticing that I was getting a great workout from that because I'm trying to also hit those fast twitch fibers. Even if I'm not doing it all the time, once in a while I find it's necessary in order to put on muscle and in order to stimulate the overall system. Now, when I trained back today, I just did bent over rows of 225, which is easy for me to get 20 to 30 reps with, right? It's a different type of workout, but it really helps pump the blood in there. But the odd time I will use 315, even if the technique doesn't look as pretty, because it does stimulate the muscles differently. And that's really what I want to point out, is that once you find something that works, it doesn't mean that's the only thing that works. It just means that's what's working right now. So the open mind is always necessary when it comes down to learning your body. You need to keep that open mind and not get too fanatical or too stuck into using that one technique that works as a parameter out of all the multiple parameters that you can use in your training. Now today I also did bicep curls on the incline, and I did heavier weight with this. Like, I warmed up a bit and then I went to 50-pound dumbbells. And I noticed once again, when I use heavy weights once in a while, regardless of whether it looks pretty or not, I get more muscle size from it. I can actually see my arms balloon up over the next day or two after using heavy weight. So I found I need to use heavy weight once in a while and then rep out other days with higher repetitions. And through balancing this process, depending on how I'm feeling, I get much more muscle mass gains. So if I'm getting a little bit of tendon pain, a little bit of inflammation, or a little bit of, let's just say, more dense tissue soreness, you start to learn how to decipher the difference between muscle soreness and dense tissue soreness, such as ligament, tendon, or the muscles that are right close to the spine. You know, those of you who deadlift on the floor probably know what I'm talking about. You start to learn the difference between trauma soreness and muscle soreness. And sometimes when you get a little bit of trauma soreness, you know that's not the time to use excessively heavy weights or really challenge the heavyweight side of things. You either may benefit from taking time off or just using lighter weights around those joints at the time until they recover, and then you can go back into a heavier lift again. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to say, is that be careful about getting too stuck in heavyweight or lightweight, because both are necessary, and I use both all the time. And if you're getting joint pain, yeah, you might need to get away from heavyweights for a period of a month, 2 months, 3 months, just like I talk about in the Body Bliss Deload training program, just to go through the motions and basically get your body grooved up again, just get the blood flow going and to rejuvenate the joints. But that doesn't mean that you won't return back to heavyweight here and there once you're done recuperating, you see? So it's really like a, like a kung fu approach, right? Sometimes it's hard style, sometimes it's soft style, right? It's funny enough, I did karate back when I was a kid, and the style that I did was Goju-Ryu, which is the Mr. Miyagi style, right? I know Ralph Macchio butchered it, so don't judge me, okay? He didn't do the real style, but the bottom line is Goju-Ryu was hard, soft style. So sometimes soft techniques were necessary, and sometimes hard techniques were necessary. And only through balancing both can you find the perfect martial art or perfect training program. Mountain. So yeah, I hope this helps you out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com. And remember, I am doing the Patreon podcast on Patreon. I'm doing a podcast. I'm getting people sometimes on Facebook asking me, oh, where's this podcast? Is it on Spotify? No, it's on Patreon. It's only $5 a month. If you want to listen, you get to tune into the podcast that I put up pretty much every week. I know the last week or so I didn't put one up just because forest fires that were here and stuff, it was killing my ability to breathe, so I wasn't doing too much content at that point. But yeah, if you're interested in that, just go to Patreon. I've got the link down in the description and you can check it out. Mountain. Natural land.